Hey there, and welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. We have a really fascinating journey for you today.
We really do. It's quite the ride.
Yeah, so imagine eating a peach that is just so perfectly crisp and sweet that it literally shifts your entire worldview on geopolitics.
Which sounds completely absurd, right?
It really does. I mean, you would think the answers to massive existential questions would come from, a dusty library or decades of data
So yeah,
analysis.
definitely not the produce aisle at your local grocery store.
Exactly. But today's source material argues that the secret to global economic prosperity, the core of human relationships, and the very definition of a well-lived life might literally be sitting in your kitchen's fruit bowl right now.
It's just such a remarkable pivot. We're taking a piece of writing that begins as this um, very simple reflection on breakfast fruit and watching it organically expand into this grand theory about human nature.
And that is exactly the mission for our deep dive today. We are unpacking a short, highly reflective essay. It was written back in December 2020 by an author named Xu Feng, and it's titled Revelation: The More Excellent, the Happier.
That's a great title.
It is. So we're going to take you from the produce aisle to the fate of entire nations. And by the end, you're going to have this very blunt, highly practical, new lens to view the people in your own life.
But to get to all that grand philosophy,
Yeah.
we have to start with the literal day-to-day grounding of the author's life.
Oh, absolutely. We have to start with the groceries.
Yes, the grocery.
So the inciting incident of this entire worldview is just a simple gift. Xu Feng gets a delivery of 12 large peaches from a friend in Vancouver.
And the way he describes these peaches, I mean, it goes way beyond just a casual afternoon snack.
Oh, totally. He notes that they are gorgeously colored, tender, crisp, undeniably sweet, and just deeply fragrant.
He actually says these are the best peaches he has tasted since he was a child.
Right, so he's effectively breaking this decades-long dry spell of just eating mediocre fruit.
Yeah, and by doing that, he is establishing a baseline of absolute undeniable quality.
Like he has just experienced the absolute physical pinnacle of what a peach can be.
Exactly. And that sensory peak creates this immediate, really sharp contrast when he tries to just go back to his normal life.
Because obviously, the 12 Vancouver peaches run out eventually.
Right, they always do. So he goes down to his local supermarket and buys several different kinds of peaches to try and replace them.
And they fail on literally every conceivable metric.
It's a massive culinary disappointment.
Yeah, the supermarket peaches just can't compare in size. They lack the vibrant color and the sweetness and fragrance. They just aren't there at all.
But he doesn't stop his observation there with just the peaches.
No, he broadens this into a really rigorous daily routine. He mentions that to satisfy his guests, he serves a plate of fruit for breakfast 365 days a year.
Which is an incredible level of consistency. I mean, it basically turns his breakfast table into a longitudinal study of produce.
Yeah, a daily fruit lab. And grapes are the constant staple on this table. He's sourcing local Canadian grapes, plus imports from the U.S. and Mexico.
Right, so he's analyzing these grapes every single morning, comparing them day after day.
Exactly. And through this relentless daily exposure, he discovers what he explicitly calls the grape secret.
The grape secret. It sounds so mysterious, but it's really just an observation of a highly consistent pattern in nature.
Yeah, what does he actually notice there?
Well, through simple repetition, he sees that the larger the grape is, the sweeter and more fragrant it tends to be.
Right.
But it goes further than that. These larger, sweeter grapes are invariably seedless. They leave what he terms less residue when you eat them, and naturally, they command a much higher price in the market.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why is the author spending so much time analyzing his breakfast produce? What are we supposed to take away from this?
Well, it's about establishing a baseline rule, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it reminds me of paying for the premium version of a software app.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right, like you pay more money up front, but in return, you get zero ads, there is absolutely no lag, and the interface never crashes.
You get a perfectly smooth, completely frictionless experience.
Exactly. You are paying for the lack of annoyance just as much as you are paying for the core features of the app. But still, why write a whole philosophical essay about it?
What's fascinating here is the actual mechanics of his logic. He's utilizing classic inductive reasoning.
Okay, break that down for us.
Sure. So he takes these universally understood, highly tangible experiences, like eating a flawless, juicy Vancouver peach versus a really bland supermarket one.
Or the premium grape versus a gritty seeded one.
Exactly. And he uses those sensory experiences to establish a foundational rule. He observes that in the natural world, higher quality in one dimension generally guarantees higher quality across all other dimensions.
Ah, I see. So if the grape is large, the natural law dictates it will also be sweet, seedless, and leave no bitter aftertaste.
Precisely. He is setting up a natural law of physics for quality. If one variable is maxed out, the others follow suit.
And because he has so meticulously established this natural law using something we can all literally taste and touch, he now makes his first massive conceptual pivot.
This is where the essay really takes off.
Yeah, he takes this exact same logic, lifts it entirely out of the produce aisle, and applies it directly to human beings.
This is where the text shifts from just being a culinary diary to a really profound treatise on human behavior.
He writes this core revelation. He says that for all things, including lives, the more excellent they are in some ways, the better they will be in many ways.
Yes, and he explicitly and emphatically applies this to human lives. He literally takes the grape secret and turns it into the human secret.
It's wild. So according to the text, these excellent individuals share very specific, highly recognizable traits.
Right, they're easy to deal with, they cause less trouble for others, they're flexible, and they're highly accommodating in everyday affairs.
Just look at the underlying theme of those traits, though. These are entirely relational metrics.
Yeah, Zhu Feng is essentially looking at the behavioral economics of human interaction.
That's a really good way to put it.
He argues that these excellent people give and dedicate way more of their energy, but they ask for significantly less in return.
They maintain a humble, positive, and optimistic baseline. And because they operate this way, they naturally attract a much better quality of life for themselves.
He actually gives us a very simple, ultimate metric for identifying these individuals. He says the better you feel getting along with someone, the more excellent they are.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I kind of have to push back a little on this metaphor.
Oh, I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah, because applying the standard of a seedless grape to a living, breathing human feels incredibly demanding.
It's a very high bar.
Right. A seedless grape has been specifically cultivated to have no hard bits, to leave zero residue. If we translate that to people, is the text implying that excellent humans must be completely frictionless?
That is the big question.
Does a high-quality person never push back? Do they never have complex needs or require emotional support?
Right, because if you're not careful, that sounds a lot like
Toxic positivity. Or just demanding that people suppress their own needs entirely, just to keep everyone else comfortable. Because defining excellence as causing zero trouble feels a bit dangerous.
that is a phenomenal critique. And honestly, it strikes at the very heart of the author's value system here.
Does the author account for the value of healthy friction at all?
In this specific text, no, he really doesn't. If we analyze Yu Feng's specific list of traits, his definition of human excellence is overwhelmingly focused on social utility.
Social utility.
Yes, it's all about minimizing the cognitive load and the emotional labor required to interact with you.
Cognitive load being, the amount of mental energy it takes just to figure someone out or deal with their unpredictable mood swings.
Precisely. Just think about interacting with someone who constantly requires you to walk on eggshells.
Ugh, the worst.
Or someone who turns a minor scheduling change into a massive drama. That requires immense emotional labor from everyone around them.
It's exhausting.
It is. So an excellent person, much like that premium Vancouver peach, is defined by their ability to provide maximum value, meaning joy, accommodation, and pleasantness with minimum waste or annoyance to others.
They don't drain the energy of the room.
Exactly.
So the residue he mentions in the grapes, the seeds, the bitter skin, that translates perfectly to emotional baggage, rigidity, or just unnecessary conflict in humans.
That is exactly the mechanism at play here.
Wow. So an excellent human basically manages their own emotional reactions so that the people around them don't have to clean up their psychological residue.
In this framework, human excellence isn't measured by, say, solitary genius or how deeply you feel things, or even your willingness to fight righteous but difficult battles.
Right.
It is measured purely by how smoothly you allow the social machinery around you to operate. You manage your own seeds so that the experience others have of you is pure sweetness.
Okay, so if we accept this definition of an individual, someone who minimizes emotional residue and operates with really high social utility, we have to follow his logic to its absolute extreme.
Because he does take it to the extreme.
He does. What happens when you put thousands or millions of these frictionless people together in the same geographic area.
This is where the author scales the concept from the micro to the macro. He introduces what we can view as his law of creation.
And it's a very uncompromising binary, isn't it?
Extremely. He states, perfection creates perfection, but flaws create defects. He argues that only excellent people possess the capacity to create beautiful environments and beautiful lives.
And he applies this directly to the prosperity of entire societies.
Yes.
The text asserts that if a region or a country is prosperous and its people live and work in peace, it means one thing: many outstanding people live there.
The prosperity is simply the aggregate effect of millions of excellent people being excellent together.
And he presents the inverse as an absolute truth as well, right?
He does. He says, if a region or a country is poor, if it's economically backward, and if it suffers from turbulence or violence, it is strictly because there are too few outstanding people within that group.
Wow.
Yeah, the internal flaws of the individuals have literally manifested as the external defects of the society.
So what does this all mean? Because the sheer weight of this argument is just staggering.
It's a massive claim.
We started with the sweetness of breakfast fruit, and now we are using that exact same logic to explain the complex socioeconomic realities of global superpowers and struggling nations.
It's a huge conceptual leap.
A leap that completely bypasses historical context, the distribution of natural resources, geopolitics, institutional corruption, basically all the systemic factors we normally use to evaluate why a country is thriving or failing.
This raises an important question regarding causation, definitely. What Shufeng's presenting here is a fiercely top-down, character-driven worldview. In sociology, there is this constant debate. Does a broken environment shape the people into being flawed, or do flawed people shape the environment into being broken?
And Shufeng firmly plants his flag on the latter.
Absolutely. He argues that the societal state is a direct, unavoidable reflection of the characteristic density of its citizens.
The turbulent environment didn't make the people inflexible or burdensome.
Exactly. In his view, the lack of excellent people allowed the environment to become turbulent in the first place.
It's basically moral mathematics. If you add up the seedless grapes in a population and that number hits a certain threshold, the resulting societal trust and lack of interpersonal friction organically generates economic prosperity.
That's a great summary.
But if your population is mostly supermarket peaches, people who bring conflict, rigidity, and emotional residue, the transaction costs of daily life become way too high, and you get poverty and turbulence.
It is a radically deterministic view based solely on character. It implies that systemic national issues are ultimately just individual character flaws written on a much larger canvas.
So if you want a better country, you don't start by overhauling the economic systems or passing new legislation.
Nope. You start by making sure the citizens themselves are more accommodating, more positive, and just less burdensome to one another.
You simply increase the yield of excellent humans, and the society fixes itself.
Which is a fascinating theory, but testing an entire nation's character is incredibly abstract.
Yeah, how do we actually measure this in our daily reality?
Well, the text doesn't leave us hanging in the macroeconomic clouds for too long.
Thankfully.
It abruptly zooms right back in, leaving us with a highly practical way to evaluate the people sitting right next to us.
He provides a final summarization of what an excellent person looks like in practice.
Yes. He describes someone who brings hope, beauty, happiness, and joy to a space. Someone who makes the people around them feel ecstatic.
And he gives this person a very specific, honestly slightly whimsical title. He dubs them a big fairy peach.
Or big, sweet, colorful grape.
A big fairy peach. It's just such a delightful, specific image to assign to a human being.
It is. But he immediately contrasts this with its exact opposite.
Right. He describes a person who brings worry, anxiety, troubles, confusion, pessimism, and unpleasantness into a room.
And the essay finishes with this incredibly abrupt, fill-in-the-blank ending.
Oh, I love this part. He writes that if a person brings all that negativity, then they are, well, you guessed it.
He refuses to even finish the sentence, forcing us to supply the answer.
It's such a brilliant rhetorical device.
It really is. By cutting the sentence off, he forces the reader to actively participate in the conclusion. You have to reach back to the beginning of the essay and mentally fill in the blank with the sour, flawed, disappointing supermarket fruit.
It cements the metaphor perfectly. This text is effectively handing you a social audit.
A social audit, yeah.
It's asking you to look at your friend group, your family dynamics, your workplace, and figure out who is the big fairy peach and who is the disappointing supermarket peach.
Just think about your own workplace.
Right. When one highly competent, low drama person joins a totally chaotic team, do they reduce the friction and fix the environment?
Or does the person who constantly brings anxiety and requires endless emotional labor drag the whole team down?
It's a blunt instrument for sure, but it is incredibly relatable.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we can truly synthesize Swifang's ultimate value system.
Yeah.
This source material isn't just a quirky guide for self-improvement. It is a profound metric for evaluating the worth of human relationships.
Because in this worldview, the true measure of a person's excellence has absolutely nothing to do with their intellect or their bank account, their job title, or their status.
None of that matters here. It is measured purely by the emotional resonance they leave behind in others.
Are you a source of friction or are you a source of joy?
Do you add to the cognitive load of the people around you, or do you lighten it?
It's a philosophy of pure impact. It strips away all the complicated, ego-driven metrics we normally use to judge success and just asks this devastatingly simple question: do people actually feel good when they are around you?
And while the logical leap from a pleasant friend to a prosperous nation is a massive, highly controversial one, the underlying principle remains remarkably consistent throughout the text.
The author fundamentally believes that positive energy, accommodation, and a lack of interpersonal friction are the atomic building blocks of all good things.
Whether that is a pleasant breakfast experience, a functional workplace, or a literal global superpower.
It is quite the journey we have been on today. We started with a highly sensory observation about the sweetness of 12 Vancouver peaches and a daily routine of evaluating breakfast groups.
And from that produce aisle logic, we explored a sweeping, unified theory.
A theory that equates human frictionlessness, being accommodating, humble, and positive, with not only individual happiness, but the overarching prosperity and peace of entire nations.
It serves as such a powerful reminder of how observational philosophy actually functions.
Yeah, you don't always need a laboratory, a massive data set, or a dusty library to construct a profound worldview.
Sometimes, just paying deep, intentional attention to the mundane details of your life, like the quality of your groceries or the daily friction in your office, can unlock a completely new framework for understanding human behavior.
And as we wrap up this deep dive into the source material, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
Xu Feng's essay relies entirely on this agricultural metaphor, right? He assumes that we are the fruit, and that our inherent perfection or excellence as individuals is what creates a perfect environment.
Right. The fruit determines the harvest.
But if we follow that agricultural metaphor to its logical conclusion, it raises a completely new question. What if we are not just the fruit? What if we are also the soil?
Oh, that is a critical angle to consider.
Right. Does an excellent environment cultivate excellent people? If you grow up in a prosperous, peaceful soil where your basic needs are met, doesn't that make it significantly easier to be a big fairy peach who doesn't cause trouble for others?
It introduces the idea of a massive feedback loop.
Exactly. Perhaps excellent people create a prosperous society, which in turn acts as rich soil to grow more excellent people.
It's a chicken or the egg scenario, but with peaches and national prosperity.
And it is something the author hints at, but really leaves for us to figure out on our own.
It certainly complicates the strict binary he set up, and it forces us to look at both the individual and the environment they are planted in.
So the next time you are standing in the produce aisle, or the next time you are evaluating the grand, sweeping philosophies of life, remember that the answers might not be locked away in complex equations.
They might just be sitting right there on the kitchen counter.
Asking you what kind of energy you bring into the room. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to look around your own life, seek out those big fairy peaches, appreciate the lack of residue they leave behind, and perhaps try being one yourself.